Hey everybody, it's Dusti Martin with Platinum Living Realty. I get this question all the time. It's one of the most searched topics on Google and YouTube. What will make the market crash, or is the real estate market going to crash? I've covered a lot of videos about this already, and when I put out a poll to my personal social media page, I asked, hey, what do you guys want to learn about? I was struggling with some new topics. And what do you know? Everybody came out and said, I want to know if the market's going to crash. So I figured, let's take another twist on that. So buckle up, get some snacks, hit the subscribe button, and let's go. All right, so one of the things we need to keep in mind is that when there is a market correction, it does not equal a crash. And in fact, in only 2 of the last 5 recessions, housing prices went up. And in one of those, they only went down 2%. So out of the 2 recessions where housing prices actually went down, it only went down 1%. That's negligible in the grand scheme of things in terms of the amount of time we've been paying attention to home values and actually tracking it, right? The other one we all can refer to as the housing bubble, the Great Recession, and all the words and the PTSD that surrounds it, right? So here we go. We have this once in a lifetime event. Everybody gets traumatized. 50% of Americans were underwater in their home. Millions of people lost their home, were forced to rent, some into homelessness, and it was a long, slow climb out of it. And we're just now, in the last couple of years, getting out of that rut of the recession, right? So most recessions are a little blip. We had this big Nike swoosh where we went down, like just dropped off a cliff, and then we had a long, slow trail out to about 2015, 16, 17. And to be honest, that's just how it is. It's where we are. So I have covered other videos, and I'll put them in the links below, about what caused that and why we're not there now. But what maybe we should cover now is what would cause an actual crash in the housing market, all right? One of the biggest drivers in any industry, real estate included, is supply and demand. If you've taken microeconomics, macroeconomics 101 at any community college, you will have learned that as demand increases and supply decreases, prices will go up. We know this, right? So put this in perspective. In Arizona's real estate market, an average, even, stable market is about 90 days average on market for a home to sell. And then inventory wise, you're looking somewhere between 25, 27,000. Some people would say even as high as 30,000 active homes listed in the MLS. And as of this recording, there's less than 3,700. Keep that in mind. So we're at just over 1% of our normal average stable inventory. So take a minute to just let that sink in. But on the other hand, we've actually seen an increase in sales, the number of sales the last couple of years. And what that tells you is that there are still tons and tons and tons and tons of buyers right now that are not even accounted for in the MLS. All it tells us is that the homes that are coming onto the MLS are selling at a higher rate of speed, and that more homes are being sold and more homes are coming on the market, but it's not nearly enough to actually satisfy the need and the demand, right? Sounds easy, right? Right now, as of this recording, we're at under 9,400 listings that are under contract, right? So almost 3 times the amount of homes under contract as there are for actually for sale. Keep that in mind. And then when we break it down even further, in the last 30 days, there's only been just under 7,300 sales. So, and that number continues to trickle up as our under contract numbers start to trickle up. It's this kind of rolling, building avalanche of homes not available, right? So if we're having a crash, it's an inventory crash. Okay, so what caused that? Well, as you remember, in the Great Recession, everybody lost their shirt, especially builders, and especially here in Arizona. And builders for a decade didn't build hardly anything, right? And because of that, people didn't just wind up dead because the market crashed. No, they just had crappier living situations and financial situations, right? They didn't go anywhere. They just moved in with mom and wrote it out, right? So we have this huge group of people coming of age. That would be our millennials. And they are a bigger demographic group than even the baby boomers. The baby boomers are living longer, they're healthier, and when they are getting old and sick and retired, they're not necessarily selling down. They're not moving into an old folks home or a retirement community. They're not downsizing. They're choosing to age in place and just decide that I like my house and I'm going to stay here. So you have a lot of people who would normally be selling their homes, not selling. Then you have the people who would normally be selling their homes, not seeing anything on the market, not selling. And then you have all these buyers who've gotten married, had kids, and it's no longer feasible to stay in mom's basement and everybody share one bathroom, right? So you have these factors contributing to that. And to make it worse, builders did not build enough to keep up with population growth for a decade. What does that mean? Everybody who just had a bunch of kids in the last 10, 15 years is really outgrowing or already have outgrown where they were, but there's not another house for them to buy. Not just because a baby boomer won't move out, but because it was never built. And it's going to be several years until we dig ourselves out of that actual pit, right? So then we get to, okay, if that's where we're at, what would take, a crash? What would cause that? Well, we would have to have demand drop and we'd have to have inventory surge. And when I say surge, I don't mean like another 5,000 homes on the market. I mean like tens of thousands of homes on the market here in Arizona. So much so we would have to put ourselves at about an 8 to 10 month supply of inventory, or even 12 to get the same kind of crash, maybe more actually, if I think about it, to get the same kind of crash that we had last time. And I have said this a million times over the last 10 or 15 years. And my husband, God bless him, our former state treasurer who actually predicted the last recession, and one of our former governors even called him Chicken Little on the 5 o'clock news, who said, hey, we're going to have a crash. Even that guy's been saying this is a once in a lifetime event. So it's going to be a big drop. It's going to be traumatic. And it was. And it was going to be a long trail out. And it was. And so we have to keep that in mind. We're just getting to the end of that long trail. And to be honest, if you go back to where home prices were before the crash, we would just now be getting back to a normal, stable price point type of a market when you talk about returning gains, right? So keep that in mind. But we'd have to have at least 8, 10 months worth of supply for us to see any downward pressure on prices. Now, what we might see is an evening out, right? Interest rates are climbing, and the Fed actually announced that they're going to not only raise rates at every meeting for the rest of the year. In fact, they just raised them, right? A couple of weeks ago, they just raised them. We knew they were going to. They said they were going to do it 4 times this year. But now we're getting to the point where we're seeing inflation in the cost of living outside of a home. And then we're seeing a lot of migration from other states to the sand states like Arizona, Florida, Texas, places where the weather's better, the taxes are lower, and the cost of living is lower. And so when you keep that in mind, we've got this overburden of population growth in our area, partly because we didn't build enough for the population that was already here, but we certainly didn't build enough to adjust for the amount of new people coming here. Arizona's always been a destination state and a retirement state, but anymore, it's not just retirees coming here. It's people looking for a lower cost of living, lower taxes, high-paying jobs, good schools. That's why they're coming. And I've even had a couple couples call me up in their 30s and say, the heated handles on my snowblower froze over this winter. I'm done. And they applied one job in Florida and one in Arizona, and Arizona called first. So here they are. So keep that in mind. So then let's talk about inflation and, more importantly, stagflation. That is going to be what is going to edge out a lot of people out of home ownership. Now, it's probably not going to cause a crash, but caveat, time out. It's an election year. Never underestimate a politician's ability to convince his fellow politicians to do some epically stupid in an election year to make it worse on everybody else with unintended consequences. So that's my one little caveat is whatever I say here, some politician may crap all over in about 3-4 months. Now that we have these people coming from other places that have a lot more money to work with because where they were coming from, their home was worth so much more, even though it was not all that great. They could get a McMansion here in Arizona for that, and that's okay. And they'll happily pay it because they need a roof over their head and they understand what the game is. And so as interest rates go up and prices go up, homes will become more unaffordable for the average Arizonan. It's coming. I've been saying it's coming. Now it's here. So keep that in mind and in the back of your head. So how do we hedge against this? Well, real estate has always traditionally been a hedge against inflation from an investment standpoint. It is one of the most, if not the most, stable investment that you can ever make, right? You know, with the exception of those once in 100-year lifetime type events like the Great Recession. So with that in mind, what are the investors doing to protect their money from the coming inflation and stagflation caused by, well, everything in Washington, D.C.? They are buying homes, lots of homes. They will buy your home if you let them. And are they buying these homes to flip them and make a quick buck? No, they are buying them to keep them and rent them out to someone like you. So what is happening is you have all these big investment groups and some single investors. I know one guy in my database who's got probably 400 properties. They are all coming in with a long-term goal. A lot of them I've seen, and this is the part that I can't jive with, but some of them don't even care as much of what the monthly return is, as long as they're like breaking even, because they know long-term play, that property is going to be worth so much more, right? When you think about it, you think, what should I be doing? My real estate coach has been telling me for a couple of years now, you don't own enough doors. You don't own enough properties. You need to buy some rentals, short-term, long-term, whatever fits your bill. That's something you should be looking at. Buy something, hold it, plan on holding it for a long time. Now, you might be thinking, but I've got a really low budget. How am I gonna buy an investment property, or I don't even own my own home? What do I do? Well, stick around, hit subscribe. Next week, we'll have another video that'll talk about house hacking and how you can buy your very first investment property and not have to pay investment interest rates. My name's Dusti Martin with Platinum Living Realty, and if you're wondering what your home might be worth in today's market, go ahead and give me a call at 480-717-9405 or visit my website at dustimartinrealtor.com.